Welcome to Baseball Biz on Deck. I am Mark Corbett, and of course, Mr. Matt Germain is here, and we are here to entertain you with all things baseball. And as we've seen those 162 games come to a close, there's still some postseason activity going on. And I'm going to see if we could get the other. I've sent out a message, Matt, to 30 guys, and I told them I wanted to invite them to Tampa, Florida. They needed to be here because I was going to tell them what it was like for the owner ethos, and to be a good owner. But it didn't work out that way. They said I was too fat, and they weren't going to listen to me after all. So there you go. How you been, man?
I've been living the fall dream. So everything is pumpkin spice this, pumpkin spice that, and getting used to Thanksgiving cropping up around the corner. Because for us, it's in 12 days. I know yours is in November, but so starting I can feel my body starting to scream for pie and stuffing and all kinds of things I shouldn't be putting in it. But it's coming. I can feel it. And playoff baseball definitely goes along with that.
Oh man, do you get the pumpkin spice coffee and all that then?
No,
Or?
I'm black, no sugar, no milk. That's me.
Yeah. I'll take it intravenously too, just like that. Just would you like milk with that? I said no, I don't want a milkshake, thank you. But it's yeah, I know. And see, it's difficult because when I'm down in Ybor and we got all this great culture from Cuba and other Latin cultures, and Cafe con Leche is part of that. But I'm just like, yeah, I'm glad you guys just give me the espresso and we'll be a-okay. Wow. It has been fun. It's interesting week for all of us Rays fans because we now have new owners of the team. Man, this is something I think most fans have been looking to for a long time. However, you have pointed out some things online that we should, respect the organization that was there before, and specifically the things they've achieved. One of your postings was talking about the great talent of the front office that's been basically people have picked from time and time again from other teams. It's because they're doing something right. And so that has been a great to see that. So that, and you look at it too. I was just looking at those numbers the other day. I think you may have said something about these too. Whenever he got the team with a couple of years later, they're dropping the devil on the Devil Rays. And then we just had winning season after winning season, and where we'd been fifth out of five in the AL East, we start popping up there in the top spot. Some of those, I was like, wow, there's a lot to celebrate for the Stu Sternberg, what he's done. I mean, there will always be people who'll be upset about things. They expected this, that, and the others, certainly with the stadium, but the achievements were phenomenal.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worthwhile for all fans that are, they may or may not be paying attention to the off season right now or the postseason. But if you reflect back on the time that Stu Sternberg was owner, I think generally speaking, you have to be satisfied that one, he made it interesting. Two, he made the team worth watching and respected across MLB for the most part. Three, he brought in like some great moments. You think about the Longo home run, you think about Mike Brosseau, you think about Randy Arozarena and Brett Phillips, all that. There's moments that are key and set in stone in people's minds that are, even if they're not Rays fans, they will remember that relay from Kiermaier to Willie Adames to home, right? Like there are things that you just know he was able to bring to the city. And the one thing that I still kind of find fascinating, because he came close theoretically hundreds of times, but he never once really seemed set on selling out the franchise to another city.
Sure.
Right. So that has to be a notch in his belt that people can come back to and say, you know what, he may have tried to split the season with another city. That's not really taking the franchise away from the city, because if MLB at that point would have to choose between the two, it would go back to the Rays more than likely. I see it more as a business person who tried to leverage everything that he could to get what he wanted. And then, eventually he got what he wanted, which was the sale of the Rays. And I think now we should focus on that new group and really examine where they come from. Because, Mark, I've been doing some research. So I know everybody's focused on Patrick, right, as the main owner. But
Yeah.
to me, he is not the key. The one who's going to be running the show, right? And you know who it is. It's the CEO, which is going to be Ken Babby. That's who is actually going to do the dirty work in terms of heading the franchise and making sure it goes down the right path. And I don't know how much you know about Ken Babby, but his dad, right, Lou Babby, was the president of the Phoenix Suns. He was also an agent for a lot of prominent basketball players and baseball players and hockey players. He spent 5 years as the president of basketball operations for the Phoenix Suns. The year he left the Phoenix Suns as president is when Ken Babby purchased the Jacksonville
Jumbo
Jumbo
Shrimp.
Shrimp, who he rebranded. At the time, they weren't in AAA; they were in AA, I believe. And so he did a whole rebranding thing and reconnecting with the community, and spent a lot of money, maybe his dad's money, I don't know, into the stadium. and got a whole bunch of upgrades put in and yada, and he turned things around for them. He's part of a lot of different organizations as a result in Jacksonville area. And one thing that we'll have to ask, one of the people that we're interviewing soon, I believe, is he spent some time at the Washington Post as well. So maybe they rubbed shoulders a little bit, and something can be said about that. But he also purchased the AA team, which is the Akron Arrows, and then he renamed them as well. So he did two rebrandings. Like in both cases, he went in there and rebranded. Now the Rays, I don't know how many split personalities they have now with the City Connects and everything else, and the Devil Rays and the Rays, like you mentioned before, the Starburst, no Starburst. There was a whole bunch of, I don't know how much rebranding you can do with the Rays, right? But this is just part of the processes that he's shown in two cases. And he's part of the boards in a lot of the things that those cities are doing in Cleveland and in Jacksonville. So I don't know how much of that he's going to let go as he takes the helm of the Rays, and how much he can be a part of. But as far as I know, if you're on the board of this or the board of that, they meet once every 4 to 6 months. You're not there constantly. You're just sort of keeping your finger on the pulse, right? And making sure that your interests are valued in all decisions that are made. So anyways, all that to say that success that the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp have had, and they won the national AAA championship this year. And I'm talking more about the success of reconnecting the team with the city in Jacksonville and taking some pride into that, all comes from their Fast Forward Sports Group, which is, the way that they transform the sales, right, of how they operate and what they do. And I just want to read a quick thing, if I can, about their philosophy. It speaks a lot to how they view things. And I think most people will agree that they'll find that a little bit refreshing from the Stu Sternberg days. Okay. That's why I want to read it. So he says that the families and corporate groups come to the games for the memories, not just for the wins and losses. It's about affordable family fun, community engagement, and creating moments that last. We never use the word baseball in our value proposition. Now that is a striking contrast to the Stu Sternberg way of mode of operation, generally speaking, right? He says the fast forward sales team is selling an idea, a feeling, a partnership. What they needed wasn't just better sales techniques. They needed a systematic way to develop their sales team into trusted advisors and community leaders. That's why it's turned to Next Level, which is a top ranked organization, et cetera, in terms of operating with them and learning from them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, I think, if you're looking for positives in this whole shakeup thing, it's that I think you're going to see a shift in focus to really making strong community relations. And as we're talking about where the stadium is going to be, where the investments are going to come from, how they're going to fund things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that's the kind of mentality you have to go into it with. Not the abrasive nature that was Stu Sternberg, was just more of a petulant child saying, I want my money, I want it now, and this is how I want it. And you better have it in briefcases that have the little dials, and I can just type 777 and I've won the lottery, right? Um, so I'm crossing my fingers, Mark, that it's going to lead to some positive news and that they'll have a stadium funding plan, et cetera, fairly quickly.
Well, I like that when you, especially your focus on because of the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp and the other team as well, the Double A team. One, that the Shrimp did win their tournament, and the other thing too is his sense of community already is there. If you've got a Triple A team, you're tied into community. So even after all the things he said, you could tell even just from what he's done, the commitment to that particular, strategy. So I'm very excited about that. I think that they're going to do a fantastic job with it. And I do feel for them because, the first thing is going to be a lot of folks that say, so tell me, where are you going to put that new stadium? Dude, I just walked in the door. Okay. I just walked in the door. I finished cutting the check. I'm newly minted. He's had the job maybe 24 hours now, but I'm sure everybody and their brother is going to be coming at him with that. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do come up with. But let's all take a breath and give him a breath too, to settle in a little bit. But it looks all positive, Matt. I mean, everything about this fella and everything that they've done with the Shrimp, and I'd love to see that come here. So, if it's a good time for it too. I mean, if you have to, you can recreate because of the need for a new stadium. You can kind of put your brand even on that stadium. You're not cemented into an agreement with the stadium for another 20, 10, whatever number of years. You are cemented into the amount of time it takes to find and build another one, 2, 3, 5 years from now. But still, it gets to put the thumbprint of the new ownership on what that looks like and what it's going to be like for the fans.
Right. And I just want to speak to the numbers, right? Because people can relate to the numbers. That's what they focus on, right? I want to know the data. Where's the data? So you're looking at the Jacksonville team that he's purchased. He was able to rebrand it and add 61,000 fans to their season as a result, right? And including all the different machinery that he had going on. So that's when they were in Double A. So that resulted in a very quick amount of time to a 23% rise in their attendance numbers, right? But that's huge. Just in terms of improving a few things, changing the focus of the team, making it a more fun sounding name, probably more kid friendly. Like if you look at the two names, the Jumbo Shrimps and the Rubber Ducks, right? Like there's a clear kid family focus to this, mode of operation. So I'm just waiting for what he's going to put in front of Rays to make it work. Is it going to be Thunder Rays? Is it going to be, there's something coming. That's all I'm saying. It's not going to be Devil more than likely. So anyways, we'll see how it goes. But I think, the clear thing is in both cases, he dealt right away with stadium upgrades. So he's very familiar with the stadium upgrade demands and processes, right? In both cases, those upgrades resulted in immediate successes. So he knew after the upgrades were done how to get people in those seats. Mm-hmm. So those are two right away. You're like, yep, that the Rays need that. Yep, the Rays need that. So you're checking off the boxes of the list of things that you would want to have in a CEO, right? And I think, like I do, if you're a 12-year-old boy or you're a 50-year-old man, you're still going to go to your dad for advice on occasion as long as he's living, right? And I have no doubt in my mind that when, push comes to shove in certain situations, if he needs to lean on his dad who has experience in all kinds of sports, and I mean, his family is all full of people that seem to be very intelligent, and his spouse is she's an executive at Spectrum. I haven't dove into
Wow.
what Spectrum is yet. And his mom is an author. So they all have, some overachievers, I guess is the best way to put it in the family. And I think that I'm looking forward to see what the first 6 months are, because I think to me you can usually tell a lot of what kind of extreme home makeover you're looking at. Um, so in this case, right, you're looking at the three pillars for the Rays. You have Eric Neander, you have Kevin Cash, and you have Kyle, right, the pitching coach.
Yeah.
So with those three, are they going to make any changes, or are they going to keep the status quo? Are they going to force them to decide on one GM instead of a group of GMs? Oh, like they have four or five of them right now. Like there's no decision made. And I think some are going to get plucked again this offseason, even from those five. I think, the whole, we spoke about the affiliates and where they are and how they operate, how quickly they move players around,
Yeah.
where they establish them at first, how they change the scouting department, if they change any at all, how they change the promotions, because now they know they're going to be at the Trop for a year, maybe two, maybe three. So what are the promotions going to look like, and how much will they differ from what Stu had, going on? It's going to be very interesting to see, when February and March come around, what gets announced and what they decide to go with, to set the tone on their ownership.
Wow. 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 You brought up his history, and I think his father was actually was a lawyer for you may have said this, the Washington football team.
Mhm.
And it's interesting too, because I think when his father's working, I think maybe with the Baltimore Orioles as well. So he had been around there. I mean, this isn't a new game for this man, sports. And as he pointed out, the whole history from his father and everything else preceding this. So he has a sense of that. He has a sense of a good business model. And I'll say it again, the whole idea of coming up from a AAA background, I think is going to make it better, because I will talk about in a minute about the folks who came into Tampa recently, some Yale students in architecture, and how some of that might blend. Well, let's go ahead and talk about it now. As a matter of fact, yesterday, Janet Marie Smith, who we've had on the show here before, and who did a great job explaining a lot about baseball, talking about the Orioles, Camden Yards, I think she's done with the Dodger Stadium, et cetera, and just the mindset. Well, this woman I knew was greatly respected before for what she's achieved, and she's in high demand, but she's also a professor at Yale with sports architecture. And she has a class of, I don't know, 12, 14 students. And as part of this class, they are now touring different parts of the Gulf Coast to see different stadiums, and they're putting together their own designs. So yesterday, I got to meet a lot of those students, and Janet Marie, who I've talked with before, actually get to meet her in person. It was really cool, and it was interesting because they had been to Marlin Stadium and had their results they determined from that. Then when they came here to Tampa, they stopped by the baseball museum, and the CEO, Arminda Mata, she gave a breakdown of Ybor, where the museum is located centrally in Tampa, and basically how all the immigrants came here, how it was all community, how it was the neighborhood. And then Josh, he came in and he talked a little bit more about the teams that were emerging from some of those, the intersocial leagues, et cetera, where baseball was such a fabric of this community. And then I came in and I gave an explanation of the Rays stadium history. I'm writing a book, Matt. But it was interesting because I had six different examples to show them. I didn't realize going into this, because Jan Marie, I'd send her a couple of things. She said, "You mind giving a presentation?" I said, "Sure, yeah." And a lot of sleepless nights later, I'd put something together. So we looked at the history from before there was a Trop. We know, you and I know, that the stadium was built with the intent of attracting either an existing team or an expansion team. And it took a few years to get there. So I'm not going to do the whole presentation, but I walked through that and talked about how we'd had everything from graduations to WWE in there to having hockey in there for a couple of years and naming it from the Florida Suncoast Dome to the Thunderdome. And when I love this one description, one of the people who had been involved at the very beginnings talked about this Florida Suncoast Dome, which is Trop now. And they said, yeah, it's $140 million of Teflon and concrete.
I love it.
Oh, and the thing of it was, though, after those first few years, and they finally got an MLB team, it wasn't set up for whatever the parameters that were needed for that MLB team. This $140 million structure, they had to spend another $85 million to get it to be the Trop that we know today. I'll talk more about some of the other ones, but the one thing that I did hear, somebody was over in St. Pete the other day, said they now have, pardon me, all those panels that were blown off due to Hurricane Milton. Man, it's right at a year. Oof. Pardon me. Jeez. All of those panels are blown off. They've got 8 of the 24 back up. And the people that are involved with it, so they feel very confident about having this put together for opening day. And I'm sure the new owners will make sure that is facilitated too, as well as the city of St. Pete. But it is interesting seeing this, and I will briefly say of the other ballparks and stadiums. I mean, we had one up, it was going to be up by Al Lang Field. And I love this one. It was one where you'd have this mast that would raise and put a sail up there. I guess to give you some sun protection as well. They had the one that was actually had not been solicited by the Rays, but somebody had built it on a landfill up in, up in Clearwater, and it was closer. If you looked at this location, you would be able to have twice as many people who would have access within 30-minute drive. That's what it was. And then, of course, back and forth to Emore and the gas plant with Hines. And then there's another project, Gas Works, WRX, that they're doing. It is a myriad menagerie, if you will, of different styles, different pieces. But the one thing I've seen over the last few iterations of this plan is community. And by community, I'm not just talking about who the people are locally. I'm talking about a business development. Well, I used to think business development, that means you're going to be putting IBM here or something like that. No, there may be some corporate offices, but they're looking more to have, like a good walking space, biking spaces, outdoor cafes, that sort of thing, retail. They're building all of that around it. That seems to be more the strategy for ballparks of the future. I'm not saying that's what this is going to be for the Rays, but that is kind of what is happening. One last thing I'll say. How many times have I said one last thing? One last thing I'll say is that we had the privilege at the museum of seeing some of the designs that these young people, these young architects have put together. So they had already, like I said, been to Marlins Park, and I'm sure that's what Lou Schiff would call it. But they've been here, and they're going to go to Truist, I think, today and evaluate that. So they're putting all of what they're learning at all these locations together. And I can't wait to see what they develop, because they're doing it in like groups of 3 and see what their final products look like from this class. Maybe it's something they can share with us in the future.
That's all great stuff, Mark. That's all very positive, things. I don't have anything to add. Basically, I think it's all good.
Well, there you go, folks. Glad you all came to this week, and we'll talk to you. No. Oh gosh, I thought Mark will never stop talking.
No.
Gosh, no. But I tell you what, brother, it is exciting, and it's exciting to see young minds working. It's exciting to see them thinking with the future. And I got to tell you, Janet Marie is just amazing as a person. Period. But to see her with these students, and you could tell that she is nurturing them in a sense, but not like she had to hold their hand or anything, but as a good mentor. And also, if anyway, being the woman she is, she's a leader. I'll just say that. And oh, I wish you had been here with us, Matt, the other day because you would have loved it. There is a building, Suoper Dante. These attorneys own this old brick building. It was a brewery in the midst of cigar factories everywhere. And we were able to go up this place up to the tower on the fourth level and look out, and we could see all the development areas where there's been all this talk about the Rays and Ybor and Tampa. I wish you were there, man. It was a lot of fun to take it all in.
No, that sounds really cool. That sounds like everybody's learning, even the people that are not part of the tour. They're just like, oh man, that's a yeah, okay. I got you. You got to wonder how many people are going to get to be a part of the next stadium builds, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you look across Major League Baseball, how many more stadiums are coming? Is there one, two, three? You got the one in Tampa, you got the one in Vegas, you got, and how many of them can you actually access or be a part of or have a voice in if you're an architect or a student or this or that? Like there's a lot of people that probably want to get involved with those projects, but the opportunities are so few. Just getting people near the sites sometimes is the best
Oh
opportunity
yeah.
they're going to get. And then talking about it and reviewing, what's going on and why.
Well, and it's interesting because like to the proximity, and it's talking about that one location about how many people you're going to be able to get there within 30-minute drive, egress, I mean, and everything from water, et cetera. What are you going to be able to do as far as drainage? I like the idea. A lot of them were talking about if you were going to have different types of restaurants, et cetera, nothing would be like a franchise. It would be all very unique and hopefully something that was local. And I like that idea. To me, that has great appeal of a place to go. If you came here in Tampa, we would take you down to Karen, what's the name of that place? Armature Works. Armature Works. I love, man. She's my offsite producer here. But Armature Works, and it is beautiful. It's a great walkway, along the Alafai River, and it you've got all kinds of shops.
Mhm.
What's that? Hillsborough River. Hillsborough River.
There you
I
go.
knew I got it wrong. Along the Hillsborough River. And the thing of it is, I got all kinds of shops. They've got parks. They've got places you can walk. When they had Easter egg hunt that was down there last year, what great big lawn all the kids are running on. They got the Strass Center, and you can walk a great distance along that water line. And here's another thing: they have a little water taxi that would go right across to where there is the women's football, the soccer, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
They played there. So there is interesting that Tampa has all these different ways of taking people to a sporting event and then having some other cultural or diverse, um, what I want to say, just park-like business,
Mhm.
right beside it.
Right. No, that's a great ambiance kind of thing. Like if you're, I think I've done that before where I've gone to different sporting events and you're literally, well, anybody that goes to Disney, sometimes there's that boat ride that you have to take over, like depending on where you're getting off on certain transportation. And so sometimes you're driving up to Disney on a boat. Sometimes you're, there's things that are actually appealing about that and they build the memory. If you're a
That's right.
kid and you're with your family and you go through this process to get to the game, that's going to stick with you and the whole feeling behind it as a group and you're moving to. It's a little bit better than when you're rushing across an intersection in New York, trying not to get hit by a cabbie that's trying to get through the intersection before the light turns. So to me, that's definitely a plus in terms of the ambiance you're probably going to see in Tampa and all those beautiful areas that you guys have
Oh
down
yeah.
there.
Well, we're going to have Jane Levy on next week on the show,
Yep.
and I'm excited about that because she's written a book called "Make Me the Commissioner." You'll love her, Matt. Jane, she's been a sports writer for some time. She's written books on Mickey Mantle, written them
Mhm.
on Babe Ruth, it's Sandy Koufax.
Yep.
So she is really cool. And one of the things I want to talk to her about is the sense of making sure that the game is still fun. Because I think you and I have talked about this before and engaging it. Now, I've seen on some of the things Jane has been on before where she was talking about, well, the engagement. I mean, you and I have talked about BP, okay? We'll have to ask her about this because even when I worked at the Trop, I would see the Rays come out and do BP, but it'd be a half hour before we opened the freaking gates.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on. It would tick me off as a fan if I got someplace and I couldn't see the home team have their BP.
Oh, right now I'm blacked out from watching any games in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I have MLB.TV and I can't watch any games at all because they're all local, whatever, you have to go to this certain provider. I'm not going to pay $40 just to watch other teams play. It's one of those things. So I watch the after the fact, right? So
Yeah.
I'll watch the game once it's actually done recording, and I think you have to wait a few hours or something like that, and then but anyways, the one I did watch an interview she did with another network, and they were talking about, and she's on the same page. I know, Mark, I've told you this. She said that kids under the age of 10 should be free when they go
Yes.
into the stadium. But I take that a step further. They should also get to play baseball for free. Both of those things should be true, and that's how you build the love of the game. If you're able to not only play the game for free, and kids or parents are going to sign them up like crazy if they know it's free. You mean I have to pay $450 for them to play football, but I can sign them up for baseball and it's free? Guess which one I'm going to go with.
Yep.
And there's no head injuries, there's no this, there's no that, right? For the most part. So I think we're both on the same page on that front, and a lot of other things that she was saying on there as well. I'm curious of her take on the Savannah Bananas and whether she thinks that style of craziness is going to get the baseball to do some things that it otherwise wouldn't have done, and whether or not that's good or bad for the game. Because it can go too far, it can go too much, too little. But also in terms of who right now we know that the writers are the ones who decide who goes in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
right? So is that going to change? Is it going to become podcasters that decide? Because they're doing, if not, they probably are doing more of evaluating. Like if you look at John Boy, for instance, and what they do in terms of examining every single little play constantly of not only the Yankees, but across Major League Baseball. They're not just focused on one team. You could argue that they have their finger on the pulse more than the average writer. And now that people aren't reading as much, is that going to be something that actually comes into baseball where they start saying, okay, well, it's going to be partially writers and partially podcasters now? And what does that do to change the game? What kind of things are acceptable to a podcaster as contrasted to a writer? Like all those things start to morph the game towards a more fast-paced, changing world. And that's a kind of thing that is tedious to manage if you're the commissioner. So if she's willing to be the MLB commissioner and to put herself out there to manage these kinds of rule changes and voting changes and feelings and everything else that go along with it, my gosh, you better pay herself a lot of money, Mark.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm looking forward to having her on here because, like I said, she's quite the personality, and the history that she has and the things that she's written, they're really cool. So I can't wait to ask her about some of the sports personalities that she's met with. The book is very entertaining. It's "Make Me the Commissioner" by Jane Levy, and we'll have her here next week. So being blacked out, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's 3-3 in the bottom of the eighth. The Yankees are at bat, and Stanton just grounded out, so they now have 2 outs. So they're 1 out away from being 3 outs away from being out of the playoffs if the Red Sox can score in the top of the ninth. So this is quite the if you look at it this way, Mark, we're about an inning away from potentially having all New York teams out of the playoffs. Isn't that
Wow.
crazy? Now,
Yeah.
how much money did they spend? $680 million between the two of them.
I can't imagine. I mean, I knew when Steve Cohen came in with the Mets, I thought this is going to turn things around for him. And it has to a degree. But you and I both, we looked at the slides from the Tigers and the Mets. The Mets is like, good gravy. They were doing well. And yeah. So how are you watching the game, man? I'm blacked out on everything. I better go get a radio.
It's just on game day. The other thing I wanted to know was how many X-rays are in the playoffs this year. So Andrew Kittredge led off the game for the Cubs. There was Jake Cronenworth in there. Zach Littell is pitching for the Reds. There's a lot of X-rays out there that are a lot of fun to kind of keep tabs on to see whether or not they'll have some playoff success, because that's where the biggest memories are made, right? When it comes to baseball, is you're gonna want to see the glory hit here, the glory hit there. The other one is Kyle Manzardo, who was hitting behind Jose Ramirez with the Guardians. So I've been keeping more tabs on the X-rays and trying to see, what they're able to do. I'm glad that the Guardians took one from the Tigers to push it to 3. Same thing happened with the Padres. I like the 3-game series. I like the fact that, they can have some leeway here and there and not just make it one and out. So we'll
Did you see
see
game one, or did you see part of game one with Ramirez?
Yes.
Oh gosh. I didn't know who I was pulling for, but I was pulling for Ramirez, man, and then getting stuck in that pickle at the end of the game. It's like, oh man, come on. Geez. That's why it's baseball.
Yep. And I'm looking forward. I hope Terry Francona can steal one away from the Dodgers.
Yeah.
They have Yamamoto going up against Littell tonight. So that's going to be a tough one. But baseball, crazier things have happened, Mark.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. Well, I haven't really got much else to chat about today. How about you, my friend?
No, I think we're good. I think I wanted to dive into a little bit more of the ownership. I think we've done that. We've talked about your expedition across town with some of the wily folk. I think we have our finger on the pulse of changes that are coming for the Rays. So I'm looking forward to meeting Jane and seeing what she has to say next week. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be indeed, my friend. All right. We want to thank you all again for joining Matt and I here once again on Baseball Biz on Deck. And we look forward to talking with you again real soon.
And just a reminder, if you enjoyed this show, go ahead, like and subscribe to Baseball Biz on Deck. Also, you can find Matt at matgermain.b Sky Social. That's Matt at matgermain.b Sky Social, or Mark at baseballbizondeck@gmail.com. You may also find Baseball Biz on Deck at iHeart Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and at baseballbizondeck.com. Special thanks to Scott Holmes for the music, stomps, and claps.